Unexpected encounters. Olivia Reed carefully balanced the tray of miniature succulent arrangements as she navigated through the crowd of business suits and cocktail dresses. The Blackwood Enterprises corporate event was easily the most prestigious catering job her small botanical design business had landed, and she couldn't afford any mishaps. "Careful there," a voice murmured, as someone steadied her elbow when she nearly tripped on the edge of a plush carpet. Olivia looked up to thank her savior, but found herself staring into the most intensely gray eyes she'd ever seen. "Thank you," she managed, suddenly aware of her dirt-smudged apron and the strand of auburn hair that had escaped her hasty ponytail. The man nodded curtly and continued on his way, leaving Olivia to distribute her tiny plant arrangements among the corporate elite who barely glanced at them. It wasn't until later, when she overheard a nervous-looking executive whisper to his colleague, that she realized who had helped her. Blackwood actually spoke to someone voluntarily. "Did you see that? That caterer girl?" Probably telling her. The plants were 2 millimeters off-center. Olivia rolled her eyes as she refreshed her display. Julian Blackwood's reputation preceded him, the brilliant but ruthless CEO who had transformed his father's failing manufacturing company into a global technology powerhouse, apparently by terrifying everyone into peak performance. The event was winding down when disaster struck. A waiter backed into Olivia's temporary plant wall installation, sending cascading vines and potted ferns tumbling. Olivia lunged forward, managing to save the centerpiece and intricate arrangement of air, plants that formed a living representation of the Blackwood Enterprises logo. "Everyone out," came a quiet command that somehow cut through the din of conversation. The room cleared with alarming speed, leaving Olivia kneeling amid scattered soil and disturbed greenery, two-faced with Julian Blackwood himself. "So sorry, Mr. Blackwood. I'll clean this immediately and be out of your way," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Instead of the expected reprimand, he crouched beside her, examining the saved centerpiece. "You designed this?" "I studied your company's work in sustainable technology. I thought a living installation would complement your environmental initiatives." His expression remained neutral, but something flickered in those storm cloud eyes. "We've incorporated our prototype water recycling system." Olivia nodded, surprised he'd noticed. "A miniature version. I read about it in Tech Forward magazine. The way it conserves resources while maximizing growth. It's brilliant design." Julian Blackwood stood suddenly, straightening his impeccable suit. "Ms. Reed. Olivia Reed. Your number, Ms. Reed. My assistant will contact you tomorrow." Olivia blinked. "For ... reimbursement. The damage isn't too bad. I can... for a proper consultation. Blackwood is launching a new sustainability division. Your perspective would be ... valuable." With that, he was gone, leaving Olivia staring after him, soil still clinging to her fingertips. The call came at precisely 9 a.m. the next morning. While Olivia was watering the exotic specimens in her small greenhouse attached to her apartment, Julian Blackwood's assistant spoke with clipped efficiency. The CEO requested her presence at Blackwood Tower tomorrow morning to discuss a potential collaboration. "There must be some mistake," Olivia said, watching a droplet slide down a monstera. "Leaf, I'm just a botanical artist. I run a small plant design business. Mr. Blackwood specifically requested you, Ms. Reed. A car will collect you at 7:30 a.m. That night, Olivia researched Julian Blackwood obsessively. 36 years old, Harvard Business School. Took over the family company at 28 after his father's heart attack. It's quadrupled its value in 8 years. Never married, rarely photographed smiling. Nicknamed the Glacier for his cold demeanor and impossible standards, as she finally drifted off to sleep. Olivia couldn't shake the memory of those gray eyes and how. For just a moment when he'd looked at her plant design, they hadn't seemed cold at all. Thorns and roses. The Blackwood Enterprises headquarters loomed like a monolith of glass and steel against the morning sky. Olivia's reflection in the polished elevator doors showed a woman she barely recognized, her wild auburn curls tamed into a sleek bun, her usual dirt-smudged jeans replaced by a forest green pantsuit borrowed from her roommate. "Floor 50, announced the automated voice as the doors slid open to reveal a stark, minimalist reception area. Everything was white, black, or chrome, not a single plant in sight. Ms. Reed. A slender woman with a perfect bob haircut approached. I'm Diane Porter, Mr. Blackwood's executive assistant. He's expecting you. As Diane led her through the maze of hushed corridors, Olivia caught snippets of whispered conversations that ceased abruptly as she passed. Let's hurt the plant girl, why? Is Blackwood wasting time on garden decorations when the board is breathing down his neck? Probably another of his impossible projects to make everyone scramble. Diane paused before an imposing black door. A word of advice, she said quietly. Mr. Blackwood values directness and efficiency. Don't waste his time with pleasantries. Julian. Blackwood's office was as austere as the man himself. Minimalist furniture, monochromatic color scheme, and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city below. He stood with his back to the door, silhouetted against the skyline. Ms. Reed, he said without turning. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the invitation, though I'm still not sure why I'm here, Olivia replied, refusing to be intimidated by the theatrical setting. Julian turned, those intense gray eyes assessing her. Today, they reminded her less of storm clouds and more of Riverstone, smooth, impenetrable. Walk with me, he said abruptly, moving toward a side door. They emerged onto a vast empty floor, apparently unoccupied. Sunlight poured through windows on all sides, illuminating nothing but bare concrete and support columns. What do you see? Julian asked. Olivia walked forward, feeling the warmth of the sun, noticing how the light moved across the space. Potential, she answered honestly. This could be something extraordinary. A flicker of satisfaction crossed his face. This entire floor has been sitting empty for 2 years. My board wants to convert it to more office space. I've had a different vision. He handed her a tablet showing renderings of an ultra-modern work. Environment. Blackwood's new environmental innovation division. But something's missing. Olivia studied the sleek, sterile designs. Life, she said simply. It's missing life. For the first time, she saw the hint of a smile touch Julian's lips. Precisely. Our company is pivoting toward sustainable technology. Yet our headquarters remains. He gestured at the cold surroundings. A contradiction, Olivia finished. You want to incorporate living systems into the workspace? Wait. I want you to transform it, not just decorative plants. A functioning ecosystem that demonstrates our environmental commitments while improving employee well-being. Olivia's mind raced with possibilities. Vertical gardens that purify air. Water features using your recycling technology. Maybe even an edible landscape for the company cafeteria, you understand? There was something like relief in his voice. But Mr. Blackwood, I'm not an architect or environmental engineer. I create botanical art installations. This is ... massive. We'll have resources. A team, whatever you need. His tone made it clear this wasn't up for debate. I saw how you incorporated our technology into your design. You think differently. That's what this project needs. Before Olivia could respond, the elevator doors opened, and a group of executives emerged. Leading them was a silver-haired man whose smile didn't reach his eyes. Julian, there you are. The board's been asking questions about this mysterious floor reservation. His gaze fell on Olivia. And who might this be? Victor Julian acknowledged coolly. This is Olivia Reed, our new environmental design consultant. Ms. Reed, Victor Harrington, Blackwood CFO. Victor's handshake was brief and dismissive. Charming. Another of your ... impulse projects, Julian. The board is concerned about the Richardson merger. Perhaps decorating should wait? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Julian's face hardened into the mask that had earned him his nickname. Reed's work is central to our sustainability initiatives, which, as you know, are key to the Richardson negotiations. His voice was soft, but carried an unmistakable edge, lest the board has suddenly lost interest in securing that partnership. Victor's smile tightened. Of course not. We're simply concerned with priorities. He nodded curtly to Olivia. Welcome to Blackwood. I hope you're resilient. After the executives departed, Julian turned to Olivia. You'll encounter resistance. Victor and his allies see environmental initiatives as PR stunts, not core business. Why fight this battle? Olivia asked bluntly. Could build fancy offices like they want and be done with it. Something unexpected flickered across Julian's face, something almost like passion, because it matters. Because we can't keep treating the natural world as separate from our work. He paused. My father built this company on extraction and exploitation. I'm trying to build something different. Later that afternoon, installed in a temporary office, Olivia watched Julian across the conference room, commanding a meeting with effortless authority. The man was undeniably brilliant, occasionally ruthless and driven by a vision few seemed to understand, as he caught her gaze through the glass. Olivia realized with a start that she'd just accepted perhaps the most challenging project of her. Career working alongside the most intimidating man she'd ever met. And strangest of all, she wasn't afraid. She was exhilarated. The garden within 3 weeks into the project, Olivia had transformed her temporary office into a miniature jungle. Architectural plans covered one wall, plant specimens lined another, and her desk overflowed with soil samples and hydroponic prototypes. The Environmental Innovation Division was taking shape on paper, at least, double quotes, Ms. Reed, do you have a moment? Diane Porter appeared in the doorway, perfect as always despite the early hour. Of course, Olivia said, hastily wiping potting soil from her hands. She'd abandoned the borrowed pantsuit after day 3, reverting to her usual jeans and botanical print. Blouses, is everything all right? Mr. Blackwood requests your presence at his residence. The car is waiting. Olivia blinked in surprise. His home now. He's working from there today. Something about needing space to think. Diane's expression remained neutral, but her eyes held a hint of curiosity. This is... unusual. The residence turned out to be a modernist glass and concrete structure perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. As the driver navigated the winding private road, Olivia tried to calm her nerves. In recent weeks, she'd grown almost comfortable with Julian and their professional interactions, his precise questions, his unexpected insights, even his occasional dry humor. This felt different. A housekeeper led her through the house hall, clean lines and austere furnishings, not unlike his office, to a back terrace. There stood Julian Blackwood, barefoot in black jeans and a simple gray t-shirt, staring out at the ocean. You have a garden, Olivia blurted, noticing the neglected landscaping stretching from the terrace. What might have once been a thoughtful native plant installation had grown wild and untended, seeming almost embarrassed. Without his usual suit armor, he looked younger, less formidable. It was my mother's project. Not the heart to change it, nor the time to maintain it. It's beautiful, Olivia said honestly. Wild, but there's structure underneath, like it's returning to its natural state. Something in Julian's expression softened. You see the intention beneath the chaos. That's what makes you different, Olivia. It was the first time he'd used her first name. The moment stretched between them, comfortable yet charged with something unnamed. The Richardson deal is in jeopardy, he said finally, abruptly shifting back to business. Victor's convinced half the board were moving too quickly on sustainability. I need your latest. Designs the complete vision. As they worked through the morning spread across his minimalist dining table, Olivia noticed how different Julian was, here more animated, less guarded. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms marked with unexpected scars as he pointed out modifications to her designs. These are from my first manufacturing job, he said, catching her glance at the scars. My father believed executives should understand the factory floor. 3 summers of industrial work taught me more than Harvard ever did. Is that why you're so passionate about worker conditions in your factories? Julian looked surprised. You've researched me. Know your client, Olivia shrugged. Your sustainability initiative started with worker safety, not environmental concerns. That's unusual. People and planet are inseparable. Something haunted flickered in his eyes. My father never understood that. Profit was his only metric. And yours? Olivia asked softly. Before he could answer, Julian's phone rang. His expression darkened as he took the call in the next room. When he returned, the vulnerable moment had passed, replaced by the CEO persona. She recognized. Harrington has called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. He's making a move to delay the Richardson merger and shelve the sustainability initiatives, including your project. Can he do that with enough board support? Yes. My father may have left me the company, but Victor has deep relationships with our oldest investors. Julian ran a hand through his usually perfect hair. He's positioning me as a dreamer, wasting resources on vanity projects while ignoring core business. That's ridiculous. Your environmental technologies are projected to be your biggest growth sector. You've really done your homework, Julian said with the ghost of a smile. But perception matters in business. Victor knows that. Olivia stood. Suddenly, show me the rest of your garden. What? Now. Trust me. As they walked the overgrown paths, Olivia pointed out how the seemingly chaotic growth followed patterns nurse plants protecting younger seedlings. Symbiotic relationships between species, natural succession at work.
Your mother understood.
Something fundamental, she said, kneeling to examine a thriving patch of native wildflowers. Systems want to heal themselves if given the chance. They find balance naturally. What's your point, Olivia? Your company is an ecosystem too. Victor represents the old way extraction, exploitation, short-term thinking. You're trying to establish a new balance. She stood, facing him directly. Stop fighting him on his terms. Change the game entirely. That evening, back at Blackwood Tower, Olivia worked late finalizing her designs. Through the glass walls, she watched employees gradually filter out until the floor was empty, except for the light still burning in Julian's office, making a decision. She gathered her most compelling renderings and headed to the executive floor. His door was ajar, and she found him staring at family photographs rarely displayed during business hours. "Have an idea," she said without preamble. "For the board meeting tomorrow." Julian looked up, exhaustion evident in his face. "I'm listening." "What if we revealed the environmental division not as a future concept, but as a functioning reality? A living demonstration they can walk through. That's impossible. Construction hasn't even begun. We don't need the whole floor. Just enough to show your vision." Excitement built in her voice. "My team can work overnight. A partial installation, just enough to make them feel it, experience it." For a moment, doubt clouded his features, then determination replaced it. "What do you need?" "Everything. Everyone you can spare." As dawn broke over the city, Olivier stood in the transformed entry of the 50th floor, surrounded by the evidence of an all-night miracle. Temporary living walls created a verdant corridor. Prototype water features showcased Blackwood's recycling technology. Strategic lighting made the partial installation feel complete, like a glimpse into a revolutionary future, and at the center of it all stood Julian Blackwood. No longer the isolated figure silhouetted against the skyline, but grounded amidst the living systems that represented his true vision for the company. When the board members arrived, led by a smirking Victor Harrington, their expressions of shock made every exhausting hour worthwhile. "What is this?" Victor demanded. Julian stepped forward, more confident than Olivia had ever seen him. "This," he said simply, "is the future of Blackwood Enterprises. It's already here." Winters thaw the morning after the board presentation. Blackwood Tower was abuzz with whispers. Overnight, the infamous 50th floor had transformed from corporate mystery to living showcase. Board members had walked through in stunned silence, touching living walls and watching water cycle through transparent pipes embedded with thriving aquatic plants. The vote was unanimous. Diane informed Olivia, something like respect in her usually impassive eyes. Full funding for the environmental division, an accelerated timeline for the Richardson merger, and Victor, Olivia asked, barely containing her exhaustion after the all-night installation, outmaneuvered. For now, Diane's perfect composure slipped momentarily. "I've worked for Mr. Blackwood for 7 years. I've never seen him like he was yesterday. Passionate, connected, whatever you did." The sentence hung unfinished as Julian himself rounded the corner. His expression revealed nothing, but Olivia noticed the slight relaxation around his eyes that she'd come to recognize as his version of satisfaction. "Miss Reed, a word." In his office, Julian handed her an elegant envelope. Your official contract. Full creative control of the environmental division design, reporting directly to me. The compensation should be adequate. Olivia glanced at the figure and nearly dropped the paper. This is far beyond adequate. It reflects your value to Blackwood. His tone was matter of fact. Your insight yesterday saved years of work. The board isn't just approving the division, they're making sustainability central to our brand identity. Something warm blossomed in Olivia's chest pride. Certainly. But also something more complicated when Julian added quietly, you saw what was needed when I couldn't. We make a good team, she offered carefully. The moment stretched between them until Julian's phone chimed with an incoming message. His expression darkened instantly as he read it. What's wrong? Olivia asked. Oh, Richardson is pulling out of the merger talks. His voice was tight with controlled anger. Apparently, received an anonymous analysis, questioning Blackwood's financial stability if we pursue aggressive environmental initiatives, Victor. Almost certainly he wouldn't accept defeat so easily. Julian's hands clenched briefly. I need to contain this. The executive team meets in an hour. Over the following weeks, the environmental division construction accelerated even as the company atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Victor Harrington had resigned from Blackwood with conspicuous timing, only to emerge as a strategic advisor to Richardson Industries days later. Olivia immersed herself in the project, supervising construction crews and consulting with engineers. To integrate living systems with building infrastructure, she rarely saw Julian, who was traveling constantly to reassure investors and salvage the Richardson deal. When they did interact, she noticed subtle changes in him, dark circles under his eyes, a tightness to his shoulders, and most concerning, a return to the cold, distant demeanor that had earned him his notorious reputation. You're pushing too hard, she told him bluntly one evening. Finding him alone in his office long after everyone else had gone home. This isn't your concern, he replied without looking up from his computer. The hell it isn't. This division exists. Because of our shared vision, if you burn yourself out fighting Victor's shadow war, that's enough, Ms. Reed. So, focus on your plans. Leave the business to me. Olivia flinched as if struck. Without another word, she turned and left. Anger and hurt churning inside her. The completed Phase 1 of the environmental division opened the following week, an innovative workspace where employees rotated through to experience the prototype environment. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with productivity metrics showing immediate improvements, but Julian wasn't there to see it. He had flown to Richardson's headquarters for last-ditch negotiations. 3 days later, Olivia was supervising the installation of a complex aquaponics system when Diane appeared, her perfect composure visibly shaken. There's been an accident. Mr. Blackwood's car? Her voice faltered. They were driving back from the Richardson meeting when they went off the road in a snowstorm. He's in surgery now. The next 12 hours passed in a blur. Olivia found herself in a private hospital. Waiting room alongside Diane and a few senior executives. No family, she noted sadly. No one outside the company. When the surgeon finally appeared, his news was cautiously optimistic. Julian would recover, but rehabilitation would take time. Broken ribs, punctured lung, fractured leg. He's asking for you, the nurse told Olivia. 2 days later, surprising everyone in the waiting room. Only you. Julian looked diminished against the hospital sheets, monitors beeping steadily beside him. His normally perfect appearance was marred by cuts and bruises, his commanding presence reduced by pain and medication. The deal is dead, he said immediately, voice raspy. Victor won. I don't care about the deal, Olivia replied, taking the seat beside his bed. What happened out there? Julian's eyes closed briefly. I lost control, not just of the car, of everything. What do you mean? When my father died, I promised myself I'd transform his company into something that mattered. Not just profitable, meaningful. His voice grew bitter. Instead, I became exactly what he wanted. Ruthless, isolated, defined by the business. That's not true, Olivia insisted. The environmental division was the first real thing I've created in years, and I nearly destroyed it by reverting to type trying to outmaneuver Victor instead of staying true to our vision. He met her eyes directly. I've spent my life building walls to protect myself from becoming my father. Then, you walked in and saw right through them. The admission hung in the air between them, more intimate than any touch. Why me? Olivia asked finally. Why did you choose me for this project when we met? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You looked at my company logo rendered in living plants and saw not just decoration, but possibility. You weren't intimidated by me. You saw systems where others saw chaos. And you saw me, she replied softly. Not just a plant girl, a partner. Julian's hand moved slowly across the hospital blanket until his fingers brushed against hers. I don't know how to do this, Olivia. Any of it. I've spent so long being the glacier that I'm not sure who Julian Blackwood really is anymore. I think I might have some ideas, she said, carefully intertwining her fingers with his. If you're willing to find out together. Outside the hospital. Window, the first snowfall of winter, transformed the city into something softer. Gentler, covering the hard edges with a blank canvas of possibility. Bloom season spring arrived with a gentle persistence, coaxing new growth from winter-dormant soil. In Julian Blackwood's neglected cliffside garden, Olivia knelt among emerging shoots, carefully clearing space for native seedlings to thrive. The physical therapist says, "You're pushing yourself too hard," she called over her shoulder as Julian emerged onto the terrace. His gait still uneven from the healing leg fracture, but improving daily. The physical therapist doesn't run a company. Facing its most challenging quarter in a decade, he replied, though without the edge that would have characterized such a statement months ago. Olivia stood, brushing soil from her knees. Richardson announced their first quarter earnings yesterday, down 12% after their acquisition of Harrington's new venture. You've been following the business news? Julian raised an eyebrow, the hint of a smile playing at his lips. No. Your client? She shrugged, echoing their conversation from months before. Besides, I've become rather invested in Blackwood's success. In the 3 months since Julian's accident, much had changed. His recovery had forced a step back from day-to-day operations, creating space for reflection that had been absent from his driven existence. The environmental division had continued to develop under Olivia's guidance, becoming a showcase for clients and a model for other companies interested in Blackwood's sustainable technologies. And something else had grown alongside the living. Walls and water systems, something neither of them had named, but both felt with increasing certainty. The board meeting is at 2, Julian said, checking his watch. Ready for your presentation, as I'll ever be? Olivia tried to keep her voice steady. Today's proposal would either cement the environmental division's future or relegate it back to interesting experiment status without the Richardson merger. As leverage, every initiative was under renewed scrutiny. The drive to Blackwood Tower was quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. In the lobby, it turned as they entered together, the notorious CEO and the botanical artist who had somehow become his closest advisor, Ms. Reed. Diane greeted them at the executive elevator, her customary efficiency now warmed by genuine respect. The boardroom is prepared with the samples you requested. The board members were already seated when they arrived, expressions ranging from curiosity to skepticism. Olivia recognized most from previous meetings, so she noticed several new faces, younger, more diverse than the old guard. Before Ms. Reed presents the Environmental Division's expansion proposal, Julian began, I want to address the elephant. In the room, the Richardson merger failed. Victor Harrington's new venture with them is targeting our core business. Murmurs rippled around the table. What you may not know, he continued, is that since implementing Phase 1 of the Environmental Division, employee retention has increased 23%. Recruitment costs have decreased by 18%. Productivity metrics in departments rotating through the prototype space show consistent improvements. He nodded to Olivia. This isn't about plants, it's about people. That's what Ms. Reed understood from the beginning. Olivia stepped forward, presenting not just blueprints for expanding the living systems throughout the building, but data-hard numbers showing the business case for what many had dismissed as Julian's vanity project. Phase 2 isn't just expanding what we've built, she concluded. It's leveraging what we've learned to transform how Blackwood operates. It's not just a sustainable workspace, it's a sustainable business model. When the vote came, it was unanimous. As the board members filed out, many pausing to examine the plant specimens and prototype air filtration systems Olivia had displayed, she found herself momentarily alone with Julian. "We did it," she said quietly. "You did it," he corrected. "I just provided the building." Speaking of buildings, Olivia hesitated. "I've been thinking about your mother's garden. What about it?" "It needs more than occasional maintenance. It needs someone who understands the original vision but can help it evolve." Julian studied her face. "Are you offering your professional services, Ms. Reed?" "Actually," she said, heart racing, "I was thinking of something more permanent." Before he could respond, they were interrupted by the return of board members with questions. The moment passed, but something in Julian's eyes told her the conversation wasn't over. That evening, Olivia worked late in her office, now a permanent fixture on the executive floor. When she finally gathered her things to leave, she found Julian waiting by the elevator. "I have something to show you," he said simply. The car took them not to his cliffside home, but to an unexpected location, a neglected community garden in one of the city's struggling neighborhoods. As they walked among the overgrown plots, Julian explained, "This was my mother's true passion, not our private garden, but this place." She believed everyone deserved access to growing things, especially in urban environments. His voice softened with memory. "After she left, when I was 12, I used to come here looking for her. Eventually, I stopped coming altogether." "What happened to her?" Olivia asked gently. She couldn't bear my father's coldness anymore, or what she saw as her failure to change him. Julian's expression clouded. "She lives in Arizona now, I speak. Occasionally, but there's too much history." Olivia understood then why the garden at his home remained untouched despite its neglect. Why the environmental division had resonated so deeply with something in him. "About what you said earlier," Julian continued, stopping beside a plot where, despite years of neglect, roses still pushed stubbornly through the soil. Something permanent. Olivia's breath caught. "Julian, I've spent my life building Blackwood into something my father would respect," he said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. "You helped me build something my mother would love." He took her hands in his. "I don't know how to do this. Being a partner, not just a CEO, opening up after a lifetime of walls, but I want to try." "Not asking for perfection," Olivia replied softly, "just growth." 6 months later, the annual Blackwood Enterprises Gala took place, not in the usual hotel ballroom, but on the transformed 50th floor now, a stunning integration of corporate function and living systems. Executives mingled with employees beneath a canopy of carefully cultivated vines, beside water features that served both aesthetic and practical purposes. The highlight of the evening was Julian Blackwood's announcement of the Blackwood Foundation's first major initiative funding, community gardens, and environmental education in underserved neighborhoods throughout the city. "Sustainable business isn't just about reducing harm," he told the assembled crowd, standing tall and confident. No trace of his injury visible except to those who knew where to look. "It's about creating value for shareholders, yes, but also for communities, for ecosystems, for future generations." As applause filled the room, his eyes found Olivia's across the crowd. She stood beside the showcase installation they had designed. Together a living wall, forming the Blackwood logo, evolved now to incorporate symbols of renewal and growth. Later, as the event wound down, they stood together on the building's rooftop garden, another of Olivia's creations, where employees could connect with nature even in the heart of the city. "I received an email today," Julian said, looking out over the city lights. "From my mother. She saw the foundation announcement online. What did she say? That she's proud of me?" His voice caught slightly, and that she'd like to meet a woman who accomplished what she couldn't, helping me find balance. Olivia slipped her hand into his. "I didn't change you, Julian. You were always capable of this. You just needed someone who saw the system beneath the chaos. Like your approach." To my mother's garden, turned to face her fully. "Which, by the way, is flourishing under your care. Our care, she corrected. It's our garden now. The meaning behind her words hung in the night air, not just the literal garden at his home where she now spent most nights, but everything. They had built together, the environmental division, their relationship, the future they were cultivating with careful attention. Julian reached into his pocket and produced a small wooden box. I had this made from reclaimed wood from the original Blackwood factory. Inside lay a ring of twisted gold, designed to look like vines intertwining, with small emeralds nestled like leaves among the curves. It's not traditional, he said, suddenly uncertain. Olivia laughed softly. When have we ever been traditional? As he slipped the ring onto her finger, the first stars appeared above them, constant despite their distance, brilliant against the darkness. From ice to fire, Olivia murmured, echoing words Julian had once used to describe his own transformation. Oh, he corrected gently. From winter to spring? The ice was never who I really was, just the protection I thought I needed. Below them, the living systems they had created together continued their quiet work purifying air, recycling water, transforming a once sterile corporate environment into something that breathed and grew and evolved, just like them.